Oh, drat these computers. They're so naughty and so complex. I could pinch them.
What's up, everyone, and welcome. In this episode, we're going to talk about the BlackCocaine Ransomware attack. We're going to learn how these types of attacks work and how we can protect ourselves and our clients from them. In case you're not familiar, on May 30th, 2021, Nucleus Software, an India-based IT company in the banking and financial services sector, noted a breach on its servers. The company reported this incident to the Bombay Stock Exchange and the National Stock Exchange in India. The research team at Cyble conducted an initial investigation into the matter and found that the BlackCocaine Ransomware gang is responsible for the attack on Nucleus Software. So, what's our agenda for today? We're going to take a look at what is BlackCocaine. We're going to look at the anatomy of the attack, how does it work, and we're going to look at steps to improve. What can I do to protect myself? So, what is the BlackCocaine Ransomware? Based on the analysis by the Cyble research company team, this new ransomware is written in Go language and compiled using the MingW tool. The payload file is a UPX-backed 64-bit Windows executable file. The ransomware payload was compiled on May 29th, 2021. So it was reported on May 30th, and it was compiled on May 29th, 2021. There's very little time between those 2 days. The ransomware implements multi-anti-VM and anti-debugging techniques. Now, this may sound familiar if you have seen my episode on EpsilonRed. BlackCocaine is the latest addition to the group of ransomware and appears to be one of the most sophisticated and active malware strains. This ransomware is reported to belong to the EpsilonRed family, meaning it's written in Go, UPX-packed 64-bit MingW compile. However, the analysis from Cyble does not mention anything about the use of PowerShell scripts, setting up of scheduled tasks to run said scripts, deletion of volume shadow copies, removal attempts of security software like Sophos, Trendmicro, Cylance, Malwarebytes, etc., the use of CopyVS from the Nishang Pentest Tools suite, which was outlined in the EpsilonRed video, as well as blocking firewall ports, which all of these things were outlined in my episode on the EpsilonRed ransomware strain. You can click the link to view that you see above to view the episode on EpsilonRed. At the end of this video, there will also be a link, and I will put one in the description. At this point, we are still not sure about the initial infection vector of BlackCocaine, but if it is a variant of EpsilonRed, then it's most likely exploited through the Microsoft Exchange vulnerabilities. Again, I outlined that in my EpsilonRed episode. So, if you recall my episode if you've seen it and you recall it about the EpsilonRed malware, you'll remember that it was also a barebones 64-bit Windows executable programmed in a Go programming language and built using the MingW tool. Its delivery system is sophisticated because it relied on 12 plus PowerShell scripts that prepared the attack machines for the final ransom payload and ultimately delivered and initiated it. So clearly EpsilonRed and BlackCocaine share some pieces, but perhaps not everything is the same. It can't just be one-to-one copy. Specifically, the encrypted file extensions are different. So in the BlackCocaine ransomware attack, the extension on the files is .blackcocaine. So let's just take a quick look just to orient ourselves in terms of how the EpsilonRed worked. It was a 64-bit file or executable file that really worked as kind of like an orchestrator. It basically passed tasks on to individual PowerShell scripts, and the PowerShell scripts with elevated privileges were able to then execute specific functions like deactivating the firewall or deactivating and deinstalling antivirus software, mapping local network drives, enumerating files, downloading the payload, as well as then finally encrypting the files. So just as a quick review, let's look at the anatomy of how ransomware works, the 5 steps. So once they get through the vulnerability in your system, again, could be the Microsoft Exchange server vulnerabilities that have been outlined. You have the installation phase, and that would be where you install the base 64 exe and or 64-bit exe, and it starts running PowerShell scripts to install itself. For example, after the computer is affected, the crypto ransomware installs itself and sets keys in the Windows registry to start automatically every time your computer boots up. So that could be a PowerShell script to set the keys in the registry so that it boots up or it starts every time the system boots itself, right? Step 2 would be contacting headquarters. So that would be the command and control server to do a number of tasks, like say, hey, I'm here. I'm actually installed on this particular system. Step 3 would be the handshake and generating of the cryptographic keys. So once the communication or the connection is made between the infected system and the command control server or C2 server, the ransomware client and server identify themselves using some kind of like fraternity-based handshake, whatever it is. And then the server generates 2 cryptographic keys. One key is kept on your computer, and the second one is stored securely on the criminal server somewhere. So after those keys are generated, then it goes through the sort of PowerShell scripts for enumeration and antivirus. Actually, a firewall and antivirus would probably be done before that. And then you go into step 4, which would be the encryption. So once the keys are established, the ransomware in a computer starts encrypting every file it finds, using dozens of common extensions from Microsoft Office documents to JPEG images, etc. And the 5th step is the extortion letter that would be dropped onto your system, and you would see with instructions of how to pay. So because it's so new, there's not much known about the BlackCocaine variant. But based on the analysis, the Cyble research team found that the Nucleus Software is the first victim of the BlackCocaine ransomware group. The WHOIS information for the domain reveals that the domain of BlackCocaine ransomware was registered on May 28th, 2021, as shown in this screenshot here. The first encrypted file submitted to different public platforms for analysis is the a.blackcocaine, again, part of the reason why it gets its name, that was submitted on May 30th. So within 2 days, they registered a domain, which is essentially their command and control center, where these the infected systems would most likely be contacting and generating the encryption keys and passing it on somewhere else. And then May 30, two days later, is when the first files were submitted for analysis. That's very fast. That's moving very fast. Now, Cyble performed a routine threat hunting exercise and got their hands on BlackCocaine ransomware sample files. So as you see here in the screenshot, you could see that it's sort of the file type is Win32, but UPX compressed Win64 executable. Exactly. All right. So that's how we know that it's 64-bit, and we can see that it's UPX compressed, etc. Now, the ransomware payload file, as I just mentioned, UPX packed 64-bit Windows executable, programmed in Go language, and compiled using the W tool. The image below showcases the hex view of the payload file for compilation timestamp. So we want to see when this file was actually generated or created. So they took the hex timestamp, they converted it, and found out that this file was created on May 29th. So May 28th, they set up the domain. May 29th, they created this exe, and then May 30th is already when somebody was infected with it. That's pretty quick. So the BlackCocaine ransomware file has multiple anti-VM and anti-debugging techniques to protect itself from being analyzed and captured by automated analysis tools. Cyble researchers have manually unpacked the ransomware payload, and the image below shows the unpacked file in the debugger with the highlighted OEP or origin of original entry point. As you can see here outlined, that's the original entry point. Right? So the ransomware file decrypts Windows APIs during runtime so as to perform file system enumeration while encrypting the victim documents. The decrypted API function names are highlighted in the image below. So in the past, it seemed as if, or most of them had some method of first enumerating all the files, getting a list of all the files, writing it to some text document, and then going through that list one by one and encrypting the files. Now, they found a way to decrypt the Windows APIs during runtime so that while they're enumerating the system and finding files, they're doing the encryption in real time, which is a much faster process, a much more devious process. So this makes it more complex than how Epsilon seemed to work, which was again the enumeration first of all of the files and then the encryption, or other ransomware that I've done episodes on. So Cyble observed the hard-coded string .blackcocaine, which you can see here outlined in this red box, appended as the encrypted file extension. So based on further analysis, they found that BlackCocaine Ransomware uses the AES and RSA encryption methods, which makes it also slightly different than a number of the other ransomware types that I have outlined in different episodes. So how do we stay safe? This is, of course, for most of you who have seen my other videos, a recap. You want to educate your users, of course, to spot suspicious emails or activity and contact IT if they encounter anything suspicious. So how a lot of these ransomware groups get in is, yes, through vulnerabilities in something like a Microsoft Exchange server, or a VPN, old VPN keys that are somehow leaked through some GitHub or whatever. But that's not the only way. They also do use phishing to essentially try to get a user to click on a link and visit a malicious website where it could download malware onto their system and affect their system, and then that's how they essentially get in. So there are multiple ways of attack. So educating your users to be aware of this type of threat is extremely important. You want to make time for regular offline backups. You want to test the backups to ensure they can be restored from reliably. I emphasize offline. If you have a backup system and that system is connected to your network, then that backup system is most likely going to have its files encrypted or deleted. So then you have no backups. So you want to completely take these backups offline. You want to have a plan and review it regularly. Systems change, requirements change, new vulnerabilities or new ransomware arise almost on a daily basis, it seems, right? So having this plan of how you're going to review your system, how your system's built, how you update your system, how you maintain the system, what software is installed, the deployment processes, all of this within your plan and reviewing it regularly is going to keep you on top of your systems and the security therein. You want to review your infrastructure, your hardware, your software regularly. That goes along with the plan. You want to update systems regularly. That goes along with your plan. That you want to restrict write permissions on file servers. Not everybody needs write permissions on file servers, and not every system needs write permissions on file servers. So you want to restrict not only who has access, but to what parts of file systems, file servers. Those individuals who have write permissions can actually do a blanket write permission for the entire file server is going to get you in trouble. We want you to use advanced endpoint protection that can identify new malware variants and detect malicious traffic. Now, if you've seen my episode on ClamAV for Linux-based systems, it actually has like rootkit detection, malware detection, etc. But you could certainly go with a sort of with a paid or an enterprise version like Sophos or Malwarebytes or what have you. Just keep in mind that one of the key elements of these attacks is to try to disable or remove anti-malware or any of these softwares based on their name, based on the manufacturer. You want to use email and web protection to block access to malicious websites and scan all downloads. Again, the email and web protection to automatically block known variants or known infection or known malware is extremely important, because then it doesn't even get to the inbox of your users for them to inadvertently or unwittingly or knowingly click on to infect the system. You want to restrict outgoing connections where possible. This will limit the ability for these attacks to contact their command control servers. Now, again, this is kind of a not a double-edged sword. It cannot help. It doesn't hurt to restrict outgoing connections, right? Again, the reason why, if you restrict access to external servers or external IPs to only what's required from that server, then the malware doesn't necessarily have the ability to contact its command control server and thereby do the handshake, generate the key, and really start the process of encryption. If it can't call home, then it can't really go any further, which buys you time. But if the variants of ransomware that are being used are trying to disable your firewall, then you have then you have an issue. Which raises the point: how many firewalls do you have? Do you have a local firewall installed on your system as well as an external hardware-based firewall, or with AWS, sort of their security groups? You would want to have multiple firewalls installed. You want to have one directly on the system, and you want to have one externally, right? So next, you want to disconnect from networks immediately if you suspect infection, and that's been a common solution and a common helper for a lot of the instances that I've outlined in my various episodes of companies that have been attacked. One of the key things that help them be successful and mitigate this, make it not as bad, is as soon as they see something happening, right, they start disconnecting systems so that they can save as much as possible from getting encrypted. And then maybe if like 10% of the servers get encrypted, it's a much easier thing to deal with than if 100% of the systems are encrypted. Finally, if and where possible, you want to get insurance. Again, looking back at all of the instances that I've outlined and researched with regards to companies that have been attacked and who have decided to pay, like JBS potentially paid the pipeline that decided to pay, and ultimately FBI was just recently able to get some of that money back. But a lot of that is covered. Or at least some of it can be covered from insurance against these types of attacks. So what did we learn from BlackCocaine? Well, it appears as though these ransomware groups are moving very, very fast. As soon as their ransomware is known, they kind of move to the next variant, either by doing simple changes like changing the extension name, to kind of throw off these anti-ransomware or anti-malware softwares like Malwarebytes or Trend Micro or etc. or Sophos. Just changing the extension is one way for them to get at least one more infection done. But it could go even further as to changing, for example, how they are finding and encrypting the files. Either they're using a PowerShell script to do the enumeration, and then once they have the list of files, they go start encrypting. Moving over to decrypting the Windows APIs and doing enumeration doing encryption while enumerating. So they're moving really quick, they're learning very fast, and they're becoming much, much, much more sophisticated. So with that, I hope you learned something from this video. If you did, please give a thumbs up. Definitely subscribe and smash the bell so that when I keep uploading more of these videos, trying to give more insights into how these things are working so that you can protect yourself, you'll be notified of these videos. So I appreciate you joining me on this episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Take care.